Over the last year, I've made a couple of tools and I've put videos of how I made them up on the channel. When you work with hand tools, sometimes there are tools that you can't find because they're not sold anymore, or sometimes you just need a specific tool for a specific task that isn't commercially available, so you have to make your own. I've made 4 tools, which I have videos on. One is a saw vise for sharpening hand saws, made completely out of wood. Then I have a Dado Plane, which is dedicated for drawer bottom grooves. I have a Curfing Plane for putting a kerf around a piece of wood when you're going to resaw it. And I have a scratch stock, in particular a scratch stock that is designed to go easily around curved parts of wood. So I want to revisit each of these tools and tell you what worked and what didn't, and then tell you about the improvements that I made to them to help them work a little better. So let's get started with the saw vise. The saw vise that I made is constructed completely out of wood. I didn't use any metal parts or anything. I have this toggle mechanism that is used to close and open the saw vise. So I built it to fit into a vise like this. I wouldn't put it in my shoulder vise per se because I want to be able to get to the front to be able to sharpen the saw, but this is how it works. Now, what I ran into problem-wise when I was using this is it clamps just fine and holds the saw appropriately, but this toggle mechanism applies so much force that what happened was the tenons pulled out. So when I made this, I attached the toggle mechanism using a wedged tenon. And unfortunately, what I didn't do is angle the inside of the tenon. What I mean by that is I should have created kind of a dovetail shape for the mortise of the tenon so that when I put the wedges in, it splayed out the edges of the tenon and held the tenon in more securely. My mortise was basically just parallel on both sides. So what that did was it allowed that tenon to pull out from the pressure applied when I clamped the vise together like this. It eventually pulled out the tenon. When the tenon pulled out, I really didn't want to go in and fix the mortise or do anything like that. So just as a quick bush fix per se, I took a wedge used for an axe head and I nailed that in the center of the tenon, and that has held it sufficiently up to date. So next, let's take a look at the Curfing Plane that I made. This is one of the first tools that I made, and it has worked pretty amazingly, actually. It works perfect for getting that kerf to go all the way around and be even on all sides. The only things that I do not like about this is, number one, the shape. When I made this, I basically just took 2 blocks of oak, laminated oak, to make it, and I really didn't curve the surfaces or anything like that. I really didn't think about how it would feel in my hand when I was using it. So because it's very angular, it really doesn't feel very good when I'm using it. Also, one other thing is I attached the fence using these turn screws, these thumb screws here, and because I used round bar on the top, when I tighten the turn screws, when I tighten the thumb screws, there's a little bit of slippage, I guess you could call it, when I'm trying to, for example, when I'm trying to set it at a certain distance from the blade. When I tighten the screw, because of the shape of the end of the screw and the fact that this is round, the screw, when it starts to get tight, will pull the fence in just a hair, and that happens on both sides. So if I were to make this again, I think I would create a flat on the top of these bars so that when I tighten the screw down, there is no movement of the fence. But other than that, it really works perfect. So next up is this scratch stock. Now, I designed this scratch stock to go around curved boards. Traditional scratch stocks have a flat piece here instead of a curved area because you're supposed to butt it up against the end of the board and then bring it back. But I wanted to have something to make it easier to go around curved parts of boards. This has worked really superbly. I have no complaints with this tool at all. I've used it many times now, basically to put a bead on the edge of boards, like here on this nightstand. And it has just worked great. I haven't changed anything about the design, so if you want to make one of these, go ahead, feel free to do it. It will work perfectly for you. The last tool that I want to talk about is this Dado Plane that I made exclusively for drawer bottom grooves. This has also worked pretty much as designed. The only problem I had was with the ejection port. Now if you look at the original design in this picture here, you'll see that this section right in front of the iron is fairly close. And when I made the plane and I tested it, it worked perfectly and the curls just ejected very smoothly out of this part of the plane. But as I started using this on different types of wood, different species, I noticed that this area got clogged very often, and I'd have to stop very frequently and pick out the shavings from between the iron and this part of the plane. So what I did was just open up the area in front of the plane a little bit more, and now it works like a dream. So if you make this plane, just make this opening a little larger so that it ejects the shavings much easier, and you shouldn't have a problem. So I hope that was informative for some of you. I know personally I have tried to make things from videos I've seen online, and after I made it I was like, wait, this doesn't really work the way it does in the video, and I was kind of confused. So I kind of wanted to revisit the tools that I have showed you how to make, to just kind of review them and tell you what worked and what didn't, so that if you do have problems making these, you know how to fix them. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. In the next couple weeks I'll be posting a video on a, I guess a printer or a TV stand, something like that. It's got glass doors that I'm making out of recycled antique glass. So please check for that video in the next couple weeks, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you can, if you haven't already, and hit the like button for me. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.